الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر كبيرا والحمد لله كثيرا وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to everyone. We're glad to have you here. We have with us Brother Gernaro Waheed. I'm going to let him introduce his subject matter himself, but his background will give you an idea. He has 5 years of experience with non-profit organizations that have some relation to helping people recover from drug addiction. 3 of those years have been with the Islamic Healing and Wellness Center, and he's one of the founders of this organization. Brother Gernaro.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. What I wanted to do is first give you purpose, because when we discuss any issues, the most important thing is purpose. You'll look at it and say, why should we care? Why should we be interested in this? With this organization, the First Islamic Healing and Wellness Center, there's an interesting story about it. There was a brother who was just getting out of the prison system. He went to the masjid and he wanted help. He was looking for some help. He recognized that he had a problem. And he turned to the religion that he converted to for an answer. So he went to the masjid, and one of the administrators explained to him, Muslims don't have this problem. He said, well, I'm a Muslim. I have this problem. He's like, well, Muslims don't have this problem. So his frustration and rage brought him to run into other brothers. And as they discussed this, they was wondering, there has to be a place where Muslims who have this issue, because when people come from America, born here, raised here, we know in this society alcohol is legal. We know in this society cigarettes are legal, and now we have marijuana that's legal, of course, if you have a medical condition. But learning these things, as we call legal, learning about these things that we call legal, in the Deen of Islam, they're not considered legal. So to start off, I want to give you a brief understanding of what the purpose of this organization started off as. And it was to help one brother struggling with addiction. Okay, he introduced me. My name is Gernaro. I'm one of the co-founders of the organization, along with the brother Arbaz, Mansur, and a few other brothers who always help along the way. And we always look for new members to come in and help us with our organization, and we look for any kind of advice that people might have, because sometimes the best help is advice. I wanted to start with first a purpose, which is the introduction, and with an introduction. And then I wanted to talk about what is addiction, because we discuss purpose of the organization. It was better to explain what is addiction and then get into what the organization does for this addiction. When you think of addiction, I'm sure everyone can imagine we're talking about drugs. Anyone think it's not drugs? Everyone? Drugs. Drugs, just drugs. Everyone think of it as drugs, right?
It's not only drugs. It's a lot of different.
It's a lot of different things, right? Initially, we was talking about drugs. But when we start doing more research and studying, we start to learn addiction has a lot of different hidden agendas or different functions in our society. We start to see that we have a very addictive society here. So we broaden our scope of reality and understanding what drugs are. First of all, we'll talk about what we'll call prohibited drugs, which is what we'll call a drug addiction or drug abuse. When we think of drug addiction or drug abuse, it sounds like it's self-explanatory. That means what you abuse and what you're addicted to. I mean, how many of us enjoy coffee or tea? Right? Yeah, exactly. When someone tells you the first ingredient in that, right, the first ideal of coffee, the first ideal of tea was considered a drug, it's still considered a drug, the caffeine. When someone say, well, sugar was a drug, you'll be like, wow, sugar? Yeah, sugar was a drug. So when we think of drugs, we sometimes have to take the taboo issues out of it and look at it in a different sphere of existence. We might have to look at it in the sense that drugs are something that we become addicted to that does harm. So we start to redefine it. Because most of us who ever got a cold, got sick, we might have took some cough medicine, or we had toothache, we took some aspirin, some codeine, which are, of course, drugs. And you'll probably wonder what separates this to a person you see on the streets, that you see strung out on drugs, that you see lost his job behind drugs, that you see becomes abusive and becomes this person that's a dysfunction in the society. What's the difference between that drug and the drug that we take? And this is where it goes into addiction. This changes the sphere. Because once you realize that I become addictive, where my family, I don't care about what they say, I'm going to do this. When the person becomes, well, I don't care what people say, see, do, I'm going to do this to get this feeling. That changes everything. That changes everything. So we'll talk about addictive behaviors. Addictive behaviors being the things that you do not just only to get the drug, but you become because of the drug. It changes your chemical makeup. And a lot of the drugs do this. And by definition, it has to. Because the brain is the main function that controls all your sensories, from feelings of touch, to eyesight, to hearing, to vision, to taste, to everything you can think of the brain controls. And with these control mechanisms, the way it controls it is through what is called neurons. Neuron transmitters are the things that send signals to the brain to know what functions, from the heartbeat to any other functions that the body has. And these chemicals that are released when we take a drug are usually either to enhance the feeling that the brain is already, the triggers as the brain is already sending, or to delay or hinder the brain from submitting or stop these signals, the neurotransmitters. And if you start looking at our world around us, we'll realize this is a serious problems that we have in our communities and abroad. And if you look at the society, we'll know that since we have an environment where some of the things that we consider wrong is already considered legal and acceptable in this society, as Muslims, we see a huge problem. If we say a person drink once in a while, like when I was studying for this lecture, the question for a person that you want to discover if they was doing drugs or not are questions like, do you know anyone who do drugs or alcohol? As Muslims, we'd be like, well, yeah, maybe, you know, my coworker or something. But then they'll ask the question, how often do you do drugs or alcohol? And for a Muslim, that's a big problem. If you say once, it's a problem. If you say twice, it's a problem. And this is where the dilemma of the society and the problems with Muslims and the way we see society comes into effect. Because we start to realize that their social norms are abnormal for us. Recognizing addictive patterns is another issue that we have in our community. Because if we're not aware of drug use in the community, then how do we know if someone we know or love have a problem with drugs or alcohol or have any of these addictive issues? So when I was looking through the pamphlets and trying to find some of these answers to how we're noticed or recognized, it always assumed that you're going to encounter the alcohol issue. So this becomes an issue because the way the questions are designed is saying that it's okay to drink once, you know, to have one drink or to have one sip. So if you drink once, it's okay. Once in social, do you drink sociably? These are the questions. How often do you drink? The questions are so general that as Muslims, we'll be appalled at. or we should be appalled at. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the concept of, is there any treatment? With our organization, we realized there was no Muslim organization to treat these problems or to ask the questions a little bit differently to address our cultural needs. And when we discovered that, we've said, well, we have to solve this problem. We have to create something that can help these people. The next question I looked up is, how does someone become addicted to drugs? That became another question. Because we have an ideal that in order to become addictive, you actually got to do drugs. That means you fell short, you got weak. There's a character flaw now. So as Muslims, if someone did drugs, he has a character flaw off the bat. But sometimes there's issues within the family and the community or the environment that a person grew up in where he have, well, sometimes this medical profession called serotonin depletion, where it's a medical condition where the person that grew up in an environment where there was abused or they have issues of feeling emotions. And then they come to experiment with drugs, and then they're more likely to become addicted. There's other cases where, like a convert, where they'll come out of a society where drugs were the norm. And then they will start doing drugs as a normal function, but then their life spirals out of control. In these cases, you all say, well, this is, of course, his choice. But then there's cases where people who have a surgery, have an operation, or have a toothache, they started taking some codeine, Tylenol 4s, and then they keep taking them. Their tooth is better, but they found a way to escape. And then they keep taking them and keep taking them and keep taking them. It becomes an addictive pattern. And then they move on to maybe something stronger. So yes, we can always look at a person and look down at a person and say, this person chose to be addicted to drugs. He chose his life. He chose his lifestyle. But it doesn't address the problem. Another question I looked up and I was discussing is, isn't drugs that's voluntary action? And how, if it's a drug, is a voluntary action, do you feel sympathy for these people? So being an organization, we have to look at these questions and have a response to it. Because in order for an organization to function, it needs responsible people to take a look at a problem and try to help it. And looking at this problem, we looked at it a few different ways. That yes, these might have been responsible individuals, or maybe these people had a character flaw. So we chose to look at it as though maybe they had a character flaw. Let's take the lesser of the two. And let's say we all have character flaws. Let's say we all have addictive behaviors. Let's say we all have addictive behaviors and character flaws. How can we relate to the persons who have a different character flaw, whose life spiraled out of control? We have to make them human now. Because before, they look alien to us. They look like, this can never happen to me. I can never have a toothache, take codeine, and get addictive to it. This can never happen to me. This is our ideal. But when it do happen to a friend or a family member or a loved one, you realize, this is me, Ikran Muslimin. My brother is myself. This is the ideal. So if it can happen to the brother, then it can happen to me. And as a Muslim, I feel as though we're supposed to protect the weakest as well as the strongest among us. Another question I looked at is, are there any effective drug treatment for addictions? When I looked up drug treatment programs, we found a lot of them. You'll be amazed how many programs there are. But as far as Muslim drug treatment programs, there was none. The closest one I found was in South Africa, another one in Australia. It seems like we totally ignored this problem. In that understanding that we might have totally ignored this problem, I offer to you an ideal. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If any of y'all know the gold market right now, if somebody was offering you an ounce of gold, right, that they'll later on give you a pound for, this idea would be like great. But the difference with drug addiction or drug problems is it affects your life and costs your life the pound of cure. What we spend now on the prevention of this disease can save heartache and pain for family members, pounds and pounds. And this is why we looked at it and said, well, there's nothing here, but we know there's people here suffering from it. Another question we looked at is, for drug treatment, how does it work? And does it ever really work? And then we looked at, should the treatment for the drug addiction be a one-shot deal? So a lot of these questions are asked, and the solutions are, no, not all of them work. There's no magic cure. There's no, this is going to magically fix the problem. Because the truth about drug addiction or addictive patterns, although the symptoms have the same pattern, it doesn't have the same root. Any of the drug problems, we always can look into the problem and find something that caused the problem. Because drugs is actually what they'll call the effect. The person don't feel like they're socially acceptable. They don't feel like they're doing something good, or they feel okay in this environment or that environment. So they take the drug to feel different. So there was a problem before they started taking the drug. So saying that all the drug programs work is usually a lie. They don't always work. And one of the other questions is, do the person have to be serious about drugs and drug addiction, or to want to quit the drug in order for it to work? And most of the time, that is the most success stories you'll find, the people who are the most sincere. Those people who are the most sincere have the best success rates. With these questions out there, you know, I would like for you to think about the questions that I asked, and maybe revise the questions and re-ask them to me later, and maybe I can have an answer for you. If I don't have an answer, I can point you in the right direction. And after the lecture, I ask everyone to come up and talk to me and ask me any questions you like. And then the second part of this, I wanted to discuss what the organization we have and what we do to address this problem. Not just drug addiction, but those things that lead into drug addiction as well. The first thing I want to discuss is the name of the organization. We came up with the first Islamic Healing and Wellness Center because we thought that this was a problem of Iman at first, a problem of the spirit. So healing and wellness, we thought, if Allah heals and make you well, then there's no problem. So it sounds simple, and it will seem simple to us. But we realized that dealing with this, we didn't know much about it. Some of the members never seen drug addiction, never been a part. Me, myself, I seen alcoholism in my family. I drank when I was younger. And I seen how that affected my family. I seen drug addiction. But for me, I never really dove into it too much. You know? So I never had that tragic experience with drugs and drug abuse. So we needed more insight. So as we started dealing with it, we found programs that work. One of the programs is Alcoholic Anonymous, and we found Narcotic Anonymous. These are AA and NA programs. They have some of the best success rates. We found a few programs that's like Malate Islamic, which was an Islamic version of the AA and NA programs. One of the brothers that we work with named Tawheed Haynes wrote a book called 12 Paths to Peace, copying the fundamental principles of the NAA program, and we started implementing. This was our first venture. The first venture was to create an environment where people can actually talk about this, an open forum. The second phase of our thing was to inform the community about this ongoing problem, and that we should build solutions to this problem. As we dealt with these issues more and more in the community, we seen more of a need. that these people were suffering from more than just drug addiction, more than just alcoholism, but they were suffering from social problems, social economic problems, like housing, like food, like clothing. And at first we thought these people did it to themselves, that this drug and alcohol was sprung upon themselves. But we start learning soon that no, this was a social economic problem before the drugs most likely. And that this is just a chain that links to the whole picture of what is actually the problem. So after we started the PAH recovery meeting, we immediately started the Give Back program. This program, we feed homeless or needy families. We started off going to the park, just fixing food, and we gave to anybody who was hungry. And we thought of it as feed the hungry, anyone who was hungry. And we incorporated clothes as well, so we started giving clothes as well. After that, we seen a need for social interaction to bring people in to actually discuss what more problems are there in the community that need to be addressed. Because we understood the social economic problems that caused some of the things that led up to drug addiction, but we didn't know much about the insights of how that worked. So we started Thursday Coffee Night. This was an environment where people can discuss their problems, discuss their things that they're doing in work, in school, or any other environment. It was a safe zone. As we dealt with that, the housing issue became a problem. We found homeless Muslims, brothers who had nowhere to go. They was turning to the streets or turning to anywhere. And the fact that they were Muslims made us have a soft heart towards that situation, because no Muslim should go to bed in a warm bed and another Muslim not have a bed or not have a roof or not have any food in their belly. This was a tragic failure of our communities not to address this problem. As we seen that and we started working on temporary housing, we wanted to buy a house if possible, rent an apartment, and temporarily put people in. And that just caused another issue. If we give you a house, how are you going to pay for it? So we need a job placement. So we started programs where we talk to people about job training, working on getting people who maybe been in prison for 9 years, 6 years, or 5 years to help them do their resume, to get them back into the society where they can function on their own. Dealing with that, we had people come in, and then we had to start another program called the New Muslim Mentoring Program. This is where we connect with new Muslims, we have conversations with them, exchange numbers, and see what's going on in their life, just being a Muslim to them. If you don't see your brother for 3 days, call and ask. See how he's doing. This is part of the deen. This is part of the adab, the behavior of Muslims. When we seen these problems and we addressed these problems, we started to see other issues that we can help with. We started doing self-development programs. Self-development programs where we introduce new Muslims to Muslims who have professions or have ideals or have things that are already working out, so they can broaden their horizon to see different avenues, taking them to different field trips. Like we have the 1001 Invention tour that we're trying to do. Then we started doing another thing called Return to the Deen tour. Return to the Deen tour consists of what we're doing today, discussing our program, our organization, and discussing things that we do with other people. We worked with a brother called Napoleon. He was an ex-member of what is called the Outlaws, a rap group. We worked with another brother from Guantanamo Bay. He converted to Islam as he was working at Guantanamo Bay. Terry Holbrooks. We work with a multiplicity of other people, from Siraj Waheed to Zaid Shaker. We talk with him. We have discussions with different imams in the communities to help and ask questions on how we should address some of these problems. And we bring these imams to different communities and we discuss the different problems and solutions. Right now we're doing, trying to raise money to go to the next phase of our organization. The next phase of our organization is a reorganization. It's to bring people in and put them in positions to handle all these other different spheres that we're working on. With that, we have an office on 242 West 5th Street, downtown San Bernardino, where we're trying to build the office so we can accommodate all the people that we're serving, to provide a safe environment with internet and videos and even services in the office so that we can help the community. We're trying to build a storage shed to hold the places, the things that we have acquired. We're trying to redesign the back patio area so that we can have a sanctuary in the middle of a lot of confusion for these people. We want to have the housing where we rent either the apartment or buy housing for these people so they can live there and they can go through some of the programs we have to offer. On that note, I wanted to end that and ask the audience any questions. Ask them, do they have any questions for me? Any questions?
Where is the income coming from? The source of the income?
This is a very good question. I always usually answer this: blood, sweat, and tears. And if anyone has a business, which, you know, I had several businesses before I started working with this organization. And that's what it takes to make organizations work. Blood, sweat, and tears. There's actually a lot of du'as. We have worked with organizations to fund the office, to fund other things. We have taken our personal money to fund it. Our friends have donated to the organization. So all these things contribute to where we're at now.
Did you do fundraising once in a while or stuff like that?
We did, I think, one fundraiser with Siraj Wahaj. He came to Riverside Masjid and he raised money for the homeless feeding for a year. We didn't actually raise the money. Riverside Youth raised the money for us. We worked in conjunction with them, and they host the organization, and they donated after the fundraiser, they donated the money to the homeless feedings.
So why don't put boxes inside each masjid in our community? If each Musalli and Friday put $1, that means masjid like Riverside, you're gonna be every Friday $1,000 or more.
When I looked at things at it like in a business sense, this is that although the money is very important, the dedicated individuals are more important. And the way to get the dedicated individuals is to come out and talk to them about what we do. Find the people whose hearts are inclined to what we do and bring them in. Because we need brothers, sisters, and people there to help facilitate this organization, to help it function. Money is important, but more important are the individuals as well. Because in order for this ummah to grow, we need to connect with each other. And if we don't address the issue, because I have went places and we talked about the organization, no money was raised. But we wanted them to be aware of the problem in our community. This becomes more of an issue. If we don't even know there's a problem, that's the main problem. And Return to the Deen tours is one of the ways that we can inform people about the issues which we have. When you look overseas and other places, you would understand that every nation have a drug issue now. We don't say this, but every nation, if you go to India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, I mean, we had the Chinese Opium Wars, where we had the British go to war with China because they said they don't want the drug no more. So every nation, from Colombia, Jamaica, any nation you can think of. Some European nations have voluntarily said, you know what, we're just going to open the doors. Drugs are okay. So this is a problem nationwide, worldwide. If we don't address it as a community, to ignore it is suicide. Because our children, if they go to public schools, they will know about this. They will see this. They will experience this. And if they don't talk to you about it, if they don't have that open dialogue with you, if they don't feel secure to talk to you, they have no resources. The only thing they're going to have is a system that already tells them that drinking is okay by moderation. And we know that's not right. Any more questions?
Do you deal with other addictions?
We discuss it, none in the professional sense. When we have conditions which require some professional help, we use our references. We work with ICNA, Access, ISNA, Helping Hands, and all the different organizations to, if we have an issue beyond our capacity, we send them directly there. We refer.
I don't think there are other organizations who are doing addiction prevention in other fields, like food. The biggest addiction right now in the United States is food.
And food bank, yes, food. Yeah.
Obesity, yeah.
That causes obesity and billions of dollars are spent on that.
That,
Another addiction that is very common and which is never discussed is pornography.
yeah.
That's a big addiction.
These are huge addictions. And one thing that we look at it when we call it the shake belly, I guess you call it these days, when we have even our leaders who look like they're out of shape. And the reason I say that is because as Muslims, we want to have role models. We don't discuss superheroes because in the deen, there's really no superheroes. We have prophets that's beyond superheroes. You know, this is beyond, but we call them examples as Muslims. These are our examples. We like to use the word superheroes, but for me, I'm be honest with you, for me, the word superhero stems from a society of hero worship. So when I think of hero worship, I see it as a negative. Even the Prophet ﷺ, we don't worship him. So we don't have hero worship. We have hero examples. We have people who we can call examples. And once we use these examples and get to know, when you read about the deen of Islam and the addictive personalities, like Imam Ghazali, when he discussed purification of the heart, that cures everything. You go through the purification of the heart, you got those addictive problems cured. But in the Western society, they don't attack it that way. They separate the physical from the spiritual. We have a society where you're going to have a treatment, let's say obesity. Obesity is excess, is plain and simple. We're talking about excess. Your body don't need all that food. And what we do, we still indulge. When we think of pornography, we have a simple solution. We get married. The problem exists, of course, but we don't address the simple solutions. When we have a ummah where we have we have such a high number of single males, this is the problem. We can talk about addiction to certain things, but when you have a society where they're withholding the food from you and you tell them you're obese, then it's crazy. And pornography and things of this nature, we have a society where it's taboo to have girlfriends, in a society where girlfriends are everywhere. So when you have young Muslim boys or older Muslim men, and they're faced with a problem, they're hungry, they have an appetite, and they're not given any solutions. It's like if you ever punish your children and you say to the child, I'm never letting you go outside. In his mind, never is a long time. So if you say never, this causes a bigger problem than you can imagine. If you give them the solution and say, when you get married, you follow this and this and this, you can have that. When you deal with a child, you say, well, you're going to be on punishment for today. It's a simple gateway, and he can understand that, especially if he's been disciplined before. And I know that I talked about the more serious drugs. I actually thought I chose the middle drug, cigarettes and weed and alcohol. I really didn't touch on heroin, cocaine, speed, these things, because we do have this in our community, But I wanted to touch on the middle drug because the other side is what he's talking about, the milder things, which we affect us all the time. We overeat, yes, we do. We have problems with pornography, yes, we do. And these are addictive personality, and once again, purification of the heart helps with that. And once again, if you feel any of these are a problem for you, we invite you to our Thursday night meetings where we discuss addiction, period. Because anything that takes you away from Allah becomes an addiction.
Another question. Okay, go ahead.
Well, all this probably we alluded to. I think they need some professional intervention. Do you have? How do you deal with this? If you don't have a professional.
Well, this is the.
Either medicine or psychology. These are complicated issues. Do you have any people who are?
Yes, that's the whole thing. We deal with people who have, who are trained in those professions, because we don't try to, you know, subhanAllah, we're not capable of, you know, dealing with severe. We're only capable of bringing it to the table. You can talk to us, and that's where it stays. Whatever the problem is, that's where it's at. And if you need some professional help, we send you to the institutions to get help. But you have a route where you have Muslims who counseling and working with you.
He asked you the half of the question I was asking. The next half question, when you help with the people like drunkard people or drug people or whatever is needy people for food or clothes or approximately, you do da'wah after that, guide him to the right way as a religion or not?
We have people that come to us and we deal with, especially with the food, when we give away food. It's kind of funny because we have some brothers that come and they wear the full turbans and jalabiyas, and sometimes I will wear it too. We try to be, as far as dawah is concerned, we try to be less obvious when it comes to giving a service. We don't want to hit you in the head with religion. You got to listen to this lecture in order to get the food, you know. We don't want to do that. We want to show, you know, Assalamu alaikum, thank you for coming, and, you know, here's the food. Here's the clothes. But for us, the counseling, when we talk about group therapy or talking, because really this is what it is, group therapy. A group get together. We have those in the office. We have those in the office. Sometimes we invite a brochure. Like I said, we try to stay away from trying to push people. We, as Muslims, we want to feed you, period. We want you to have clothes, period. So as Muslims, we don't want to bombard you. But we do dawah if you're interested. We have on our table brochures about the deen. If they have any questions, there's brothers there that can answer the questions. That is a good question, because like one of the school called us and they asked us to come down and talk to the kids. So we do things like that. We try to come out and talk, and because a lot of times, like, people who've been through it can give them understanding. Because in the society where we say a little bit is not that bad, you know, and this is the terrible part about it, because a little bit destroys families, you know, a little bit destroys families.
Was this school a public school?
It was a public school, but it was a Muslim student association that invited us.
How about doing outreach, for example, to all of the
Masajids?
Islamic school, Sunday school, masajid? That's a nice place where you can often find as many as...
We do that. We do that, but we have events where we work with Muslim American Society, where we go out and talk about our program there. We do conventions where we go to, like Why Islam conventions, to Revising the Islamic Spirit. We work there. So we've been around doing this for a very long time. Well, 3 years is not a long time, but we have been around, and we do try to target the kids and the parents, actually. Because one of the biggest problems, like we said about the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If the parent knows there's a problem in their household and they know what avenues to go down, it can save them a lot of heartache. Because today we have adults 30, 40, 50 years old who's been doing drugs since they was 12 and 13. Muslim families who have this issue, and they had nowhere to turn. They thought sending my son or daughter away would solve it, or just denying it. And the worst part is the people who have the most money have the most problem with this, because they have the resources to cover it up. And covering it up doesn't solve it. And sending them away doesn't solve it. You know, they need to reach out to Muslims, because if you cover it up or send them away, they're not dealing with Muslims. They're dealing with everybody else. And every other organization have other agendas for your children. They want them to be Christians, or they want them to be whatever they are. They have no intentions for them to be Muslims. So you hit with a double whammy there. Well, AA is a non-denominational thing, but some of the ideals in which AA has is God based upon your own understanding. In Islam, that's not a practical understanding of God. God is beyond our understanding, so we can't use that concept. Because most people who say God of my own understanding, our understanding is very limited. And if I can understand why I do drugs, then God must understand that too. So some of the dialogues in which the organizations have doesn't coincide with Islamic principles.
You mentioned two groups which are more Islamic-oriented 12-step programs.
What we have is called the 12 Paths to Peace. This is taking the concept of NAAA and just putting a more Islamic theme to it. And we use Milata Islami, which is a NAAA program that was started out of the prison system several years ago, probably almost 10 years ago.
You run this at your office?
We do this at our office, but it's not in the professional sense, so I have to reiterate that.
So meaning the person leading the group?
The person leading the group,
Qualified as the typical AA?
the same qualification. Yeah, same qualification as a person in the NA or AA group. Even though we have people who work with us or certified counselors, yes, we do have people who have the capacity for counseling. And if there's a situation in the group, they usually will separate and talk to the person, and we'll try to find them help. And that's really what we do. We try to find people the resources so they can get the help they need.
So it sounds fairly professional. What would be the difference? Why would you consider your meeting unprofessional and a typical AA meeting professional?
They don't, AA, NA and AA are not ran within the professional realm either, actually. Their program is ran by volunteers who act according to their experience in NA and AA. And it's the same as ours, basically. It's not much difference. Any more questions?
So when you say that your organization is not professional, maybe you're saying that you don't have any clinical psychologists or anything like that?
I have to make sure people understand, because sometimes people will bring people to us who need professionals, right? And they want us to help them at that center. And it's like we don't have the resources or the professionals to help this type of person. If he's or she has or sprung out at that moment, like scenarios where the teenager or adult is high at that moment and the person calls us for help then, I have to make sure people understand in that kind of situation, we rather you call the professionals then, because they have to be committed. They have to be detoxed. We don't have that facility right now. We hope to. The reason we called it a center, because eventually we want to be able to have the first Islamic healing and wellness center where we can take these people in and go from the beginning of drug addiction, which is prevention. The beginning is prevention. The end is a center. Because if the person doesn't cure or feel or solve the problem to where they're committed, then it's a cycle. When they're in the institution, this is a cycle. When they go to be committed for drug or alcohol, this is a very vicious cycle. And nowadays, they have a prison institution now that helps them, because they had to extend the drug treatment to prison systems. It doesn't say that in the books or anything, but unfortunately this is actually what they had to do, because it became such an epidemic that now the courts have drug courts, which handles the addiction problem.
So just, I think this point is worth clarifying, because using this term professional versus non-professional can be very confusing.
Oh, okay.
You don't have inpatient facilities for someone who's trying to detox.
No, we don't have inpatient facilities at all.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
It's more in the hospital setting.
Yes, yes.
In addition to prevention and a chance for people who might be using drugs in other senses, not someone again who just killed someone driving or something, someone who's more functional perhaps, they may benefit from your Thursday meetings, someone who wants to seek help.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're trying to develop a sort of halfway house system.
Yes.
If someone's finished an acute detox
Mm-hmm.
and they're ready for rehabilitation,
This is where they can go. And I'm sorry if I'm not clear about things, because he's absolutely right. We're not, I say the word professional. The reason I use the word professional is simply to make sure people understand the difference between our organization in the sense of treating addiction as a professional sense of an institution. You know, we can't institutionalize anyone in that sense. As far as professional sense, we have counselors there. We have every function you can think of in the institution of people that help us, all the way to the institution itself. So when it meets where we have to put someone in a facility, we don't have that yet. That's our goal. The actual center is the goal that we have set. And we have plans on getting that started. We actually have it in the working now. Yes, we work with Shifa Clinic as well. Yes, we have professionals, if you want to say that. We work with a lot of professionals. Why don't I say that? We work with, I mean, if you think of ICNA, ISNA, we did joint ventures with ICNA, ISNA, Shifa Clinic. We do joint ventures with them as well. They're all professionals and trained. Access Californians, we have them on the Rolodex. We call and talk to them personally. On most situations, when we have a question we can't handle, Access is there. No, not Shifa Clinic. Shifa Clinic doesn't have psychologists.
personally, I don't know any Muslim MD psychiatrists.
I know we have a few of them. We have a few of them, though. We have a few. Yeah. We collaborate with a lot of people, and this is one of the things. I know when I gave the speech, it seemed like a little rinky-dink organization. We have a lot of people who want to see this happen, and that working as a professional to help us do whatever it is they can help us with.
I mean, like you have somebody here who can help with obesity.
Definitely, definitely.
These are more prevention-based type things.
Yes, definitely.
Good for outreach if you're going to different places to talk about preventative stuff, but generally very different. Recent versus the treatment of active. Very important.
The principle of addictive behavior are similar, actually. I mean, no matter which one you go to, there's things that are called physical addictions that are change the chemicals in your body. Like we'll talk about like psychotropics, which are drugs that are change the way you feel or see or things like that, hallucinogenics and things like that. These are the higher end drugs. These things are very mind altering. Marijuana is one of the, people don't want to label it, but it has hallucinogenics in it. So it is a hallucinogenic, but it has addictive traits as well. Other things like cocaine and speed, which is has a serotonin release, which is very addictive, and plus it causes a condition which is called serotonin depletion. These narcotics are different than, let's put it this way, one of the best understanding is nicotine is the most addictive drug known to man, and it's illegal. Nicotine is the most addictive drug known to man, and it's legal. Alcohol is harder to get off than heroin. People die from withdrawals of alcohol. You have a better chance if you was an alcoholic getting off of alcohol. You have a better chance than to get off of heroin than alcohol, because you might die. And it's a legal drug. Obesity is food. We can talk about the feeling once you're full and everything else, but it's a whole nother category. I look at cigarettes and I look at alcohol as two of the main problems that we as Muslims fall into quickly. The other drugs, yes, they're a problem. But if we don't say that nicotine is the most addictive drug known to man, then we'll have a bunch of smokers. If we don't say alcohol is is harder to get off of than heroin, then we don't understand the significance of doing these things. So yes, we can classify these things. But the two I'm talking about are legal drugs. The other ones are illegal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Actually, this is a very valuable point. And connecting this with the issue you mentioned before when you're talking about character traits and how sometimes Muslims might look at another Muslim that has a drug problem as a character flaw.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion is that if someone already is addicted to a drug substance, we cannot start the process or expect that dawah alone or just advice alone or willpower alone will be sufficient for that individual to overcome their problem. It would be more adequate or more appropriate to give them the typical help that's done to non-Muslims, Muslims, everyone, help them get off the substance, and that would be the time when things like that would be more helpful. It's helpful in the beginning, just like they do with PAH, to have the spiritual component. It's dangerous to think that that alone can be used for the majority of people.
People who are really addictive, I mean, we dealt with them. And the best success stories are, like I said, people who have the will to quit themselves. Because they'll seek even over and beyond what we do. And that's really encouraging for us. Those people who really want to say, I want to quit this. What we like to do is have the support system to help them. Because a lot of things is, when you look at a condition, you want to do all you can to help them. But once again, the person, if they're willing to help themselves, we really can find the people that will willing to help them. Any more questions? Yeah, what I just mentioned was that cigarettes is the most addictive, nicotine is the most addictive drug known to man. So if we look at the smaller, lesser things as if we're better than, I just smoke cigarettes, I don't smoke heroin. I mean, death by slow poison is still death. You know, heroin is more faster, it destroys the body quicker. Cocaine destroys the body quicker. Speed destroys the body quicker. You're right, it does do it quicker. But nicotine does the same job, but it takes a slow. I mean, you got a choice. You can go on a rushing river or a slow moving stream, but it's headed in the same direction. It's both deteriorating your body. Caffeine has a similar effect, I mean, to your body as well. But we don't discuss that either because it's a slower effect. But when you discuss drugs, you have to recognize our flaws and our weaknesses and then realize that you are susceptible the same as everybody else. And once these people become human to us again, once we start looking at our own flaws and seeing how this can affect other people, then we'll start looking at how can I help them and how can I help myself? Because once you understand the addictive patterns in anybody or anyone else, you'll start to see them within yourself. But it must be discussed in order to educate ourselves. And this is the most important thing. Once we educate ourselves about what is drugs, what is drug addiction, we can cure not only ourselves, but we can help other people. Yes, food is addiction too. It can be. Anything that takes you away from the deen of Islam, I mean, is addictive.
The reason why I say it is because it seems that in most of the countries around the world, they all drink caffeine. And like I have a medical condition, gout, and when you start studying like the food, it tells you so many, like the sodas have the fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the sodas are not natural.
That really is a huge topic. I can tell you about the drugs within our food. I believe, this is my personal belief, so I look at food as a natural cure and a natural disease. So if you take the poison, you poisoning yourself. Fried food, and really the excess. And my rule is excess is too much. That's by definition. So if we're having a discussion about addictive personalities, addictive personality is important if you recognize addictive personality within yourself, because that means you'll become addicted to anything, to your husband, to your wife, to your kids. It doesn't matter, to water. You'll get addicted to water. If you have addictive personality, anything you can become obsessive with. And remember, excess is too much. So when we talk about food, food is a natural healing first, if we use it correctly. But too much of it is a poison. So some of us have, reason we have allergic reactions sometimes, like I recognize within myself. If I take too many vitamins, I get sick. He's like, why would you get sick from too many vitamins? Because my body might produce these vitamins already, and I'm overdosing on them. So now this causes a harmful reaction. So I have to learn my body. What vitamins can I take? Which ones I shouldn't? So, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, definitely. Zakalakaru. I appreciate it. He's rescuing me.
No, time is time.
Yeah, he's rescuing me. Zakalakaru. One last thing, I want you to look at the brochure here. Once you look at the brochure, go to the website. If you can donate, we appreciate any donation. If you want to volunteer, which we would love, we want you to come out and see what we do. What I say to you is, okay, alhamdulillah. I want you to see what we do. See the people we help. And I want this to be attached to your heart, because once it's attached to your heart, you will want to help people. And that's real important. I want you to help other people. Alhamdulillah.
Brother, Jazakallah khair, brother. We thanks Brother Gernaro, thank you, he and his team, for the good job. This is humanity. And I remind you, the war a long time ago, it was by soul and by horses. And after that, the civilization, you just press the button, you destroy everything. Subhanallah. Everything changed. And the more than the civilization, what we have right now, approximately the smart people, he says, let the country, the enemy of the country, use drugs or alcoholing, we will be winner. So he killed the youth by alcohol and the drugs. And I remember something very shortly happened in America. America is top civilization in the world. And every year we have a report. So a long time ago, the people you taking drugs and alcoholic, the older people. Now, since 1990 and 2000 and on and on and on, start young people. You find the college, the high school, like the brother said. And he says, what are we going to do? When he got sick, you take him rehabilitation, and you spend a lot of money in your rehab. And next day you go up, release him, Saturday night fever, overdrink, overload. You don't care about his age, young people, and back again. The government is spending the money for nothing. So he says, what are you going to do? He says, the best way, we talk with a scholar, people very, very high knowledge. So bring one of the scholar and tell him what we're going to do with this situation. He says, listen, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to bring just the kids here, and I show him what to do. He bring all the kids like conference room, like this room, and everything ready. Yes, everybody is here. Yeah. Okay, he bring a container, glasses, and he put water in it, and another container, and he put alcohol in it, like vodka or something, like you look like water. And he bring worms, big worm, live worm, duda yani. So you see this, everybody saw the worm, he says, yes. He puts it in the water, mashallah, you play and life. You take it out, see? He put it in alcohol, die. Everybody understand? The kids, wow. See? Everybody understood? Yes. Stand up, one of the kids. What do you understand? He say, I understand when I have worms in my stomach, I drink alcohol. so the point is, really the alcohol is very dangerous. Yani, alcohol or even drugs or smoke, like he says, the nicotine. So anyway, we end this one because you need to pray the Isha. Jazakumullah khair for everybody came here. And Jazakallah khair, brother. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for everybody.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Walillahi alhamd. Allahu Akbar kabira. Walhamdulillahi kathira. وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر كبيرا والحمد لله كثيرا وسبحان الله بكرة وأصيلا